Hello, and welcome to another vlog. As you know, Remembrance Day is this coming Monday, November 11th. For those of you who may not know, Remembrance Day is an annual holiday to remember our fallen soldiers and to thank them for their sacrifice for freedom. Now, I personally think it's very important to observe this occasion because it's necessary to thank our veterans, because without them, Canada wouldn't be the free country that it is today. I also think that it's important to acknowledge the atrocities of war to prevent future conflicts, because obviously war is not a good thing. Anyway, today I thought it would be a good idea to talk a little bit about the history of Remembrance Day and also to share some accessibility tips for any people with disabilities who may be planning to go to a remembrance ceremony this coming Monday. So, Remembrance Day began in the year 1919 as Armistice Day, following the end of World War I. And it took place on the second Monday of November throughout much of the British Commonwealth to commemorate the end of the First World War. Here in Canada, Armistice Day was observed as part of the Thanksgiving holiday, but most people didn't make a huge deal about it. At least not back in the early days. Then, in the year 1928, the Canadian government announced that they'd be changing the name of the holiday to Remembrance Day, and that it would be taking place on November 11th at 11 a.m., the anniversary of the end of World War I. They also said that they'd be moving Thanksgiving to another day, and it was right around this time that Remembrance Day really started to become more of a big deal. The first Remembrance Day was celebrated here in Canada anyway, on November 11th, 1931. And over the years, the holiday has continued to gain new meaning following the events of World War II and the Korean War and all of the other conflicts that Canada was involved in. And now, today, Remembrance Day is considered a very important holiday by many people. And it's observed throughout Canada and the British Commonwealth each year to not only commemorate the end of the First World War, but to remember all of our fallen soldiers from all of the wars that have taken place over the past decades. So, as you can see, Remembrance Day is a very significant holiday. And you can kind of see, based on the history, how the holiday has evolved over the years. Now, a very common practice on Remembrance Day is to attend remembrance ceremonies to honor our fallen soldiers. But it can be difficult for some people to attend these ceremonies, especially people with disabilities who may have some challenges related to accessibility. So I thought it would be a good idea to share some accessibility tips for any people with disabilities or anyone else who may have some accessibility concerns when attending a remembrance ceremony. Now, most towns and cities have their own ceremony, and there's also the national ceremony, which is held in Ottawa at the National War Memorial every year, which is televised, so if you can't make it to your local ceremony, you can always watch it on TV. But what if you really want to go to the ceremony? The biggest piece of advice I have for people with disabilities, or really anyone who wants to go to a remembrance ceremony, is to plan ahead. It's important to do some research and figure out all of the event logistics before the ceremony. So the very first thing you need to figure out is all of the event details. So where is the event being held? Is it an indoor or outdoor event? And what types of activities will be taking place at the ceremony? It might be good to see if you can find like a program or an agenda so that you'll know what to expect during the event. And then you need to do some research on the location. Is the location of the event accessible? If it's an indoor event, is there a ramp or an elevator? Is there an accessible washroom? Is there accessible seating? If you use a wheelchair, is there enough room for you to get around at that location? Right? These are all important things that you need to consider before going to an event. Once you've gotten that all figured out, it's time to take attendance. You need to figure out who's going to the event. Is it just going to be you, or are you attending the ceremony with family and friends? If so, you need to find out who's all going and how many people there's going to be in total. Then you can arrange transportation. how are you going to get to the event? And how are you going to get back? Are you going to take your own vehicle? Are you going to carpool? Are you going to use public transportation? Are you going to walk? Or are you going to get to the event some other way? Once you're at the event, you need to know where you're going to park. This is especially important for people with disabilities who may need accessible parking. If you have an accessible vehicle, you'll need room to get the ramp down. And if you're someone with a mobility disability, then it's probably a good idea to park close to the event so that you don't have to walk as far. And once you're at the event, you need to know what is going to happen while you're there. So that's when you got to figure out all of the other event logistics. So for example, where are you going to sit? Is there an accessible seating area for people with disabilities and people with mobility devices like wheelchairs or walkers? What are you going to wear? Remembrance Day takes place in November, and it tends to be very chilly this time of year, so it is important to dress warmly. You should put on a jacket and a scarf, mittens, things like that. If you're someone who gets cold easily, might not hurt to have a lap blanket to put over your legs, just in case they get cold. This is especially important for people like me who don't, move around a lot, because, that makes us get a lot colder than other people, because we just don't have that same level of blood flow, right? So make sure you dress warmly. And then you should also probably make a list of all the things that you might need help with during the event, as well as who's going to help you and how they're going to help you. So for example, if you need help laying your wreath or your poppy on the war memorial, which is customary at remembrance ceremonies, you should probably figure out who's going to help you do that and how they're going to help you do that, if that's something that you want to take part in. And I bring up all of these things because, I realize that a lot of veterans also have disabilities and accessibility concerns, and where Remembrance Day is about the veterans, I think it's very important for us to acknowledge that. So there's just a brief overview of some accessibility tips for Remembrance Day. But when you plan ahead and you answer those questions, you help to eliminate any surprises and increase your chance of success. That being said, things don't always go the way you plan, so it might not be a bad idea to have a plan B, just in case your plans unravel. But the key takeaway here is that you should plan ahead. So there's just some accessibility tips for Remembrance Day. Anyway, that's really all I wanted to talk about today. I will include some links in the description to some more resources where you can learn a bit more about Remembrance Day, and I encourage everyone to check them out. In the meantime, if you like this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, if you want to see more videos like this one, then please support me on Patreon. Anyway, thanks for watching, and see you in a few days.